Hey guys, thanks for watching. So I hate to tell you I told you so, but I sort of told you so. The Capitol insurrection or diet coup or whatever you want to call it is going to be used as justification for more authoritarian legislation. So I was saying this literally the day it happened. I've got receipts, I've got videos, I've got tweets. You can go look at them. I went on Dak Rouleau's show, The Overwritten Report, and I talked about this, how this was just a fart in the wind as far as a threat goes, but it was going to be used as leverage for getting authoritarian legislation through. So here we go. H.R. 4192, Confronting the Threat of Domestic Terrorism. This was introduced by Adam Schiff last year, and as usual with these things, it went nowhere at the time because there wasn't a crisis. You have to wait for a crisis to let one of these off the hook, and now they have that. And the ACLU is opposing this, mostly in their reasoning because it unnecessarily expands authorities that law enforcement uses to target communities of color and fails to provide sufficient protections for civil rights and liberties. So, pretty typical. Another great example of when something like this happened was last year when Rand Paul blocked the anti-lynching bill. It was an extremely high-strung emotional moment, but if you actually read the bill, all it did was expand penalties for crimes that already were listed as illegal. So it expanded penalties toward minor offenses, which is basically what this bill does. And it gives more surveillance that is unnecessary. And it's also very untargeted, just like the Patriot Act. So a lot of people are calling this the Patriot Act 2.0, and the ACLU and 100 other organizations are strongly opposing it. And also, a lot of progressive members of Congress are coming out against it. Rashida Tlaib wrote a letter to Congress saying that we should not support this bill, and that we should not act out of fear in a time when something like this happens. So I'm going to play a short clip of John Brennan here, and he's talking about who we need to keep a closer eye on and be ready to see uprisings and dangerous rhetoric from. For those of you who don't know who John Brennan is, he's the former CIA director. He was CIA director under Barack Obama. He oversaw a lot of the arming of the moderate rebels in Syria and ended up being responsible for a lot of the weapons that ended up in the hands of Al-Qaeda. And he's also the main proponent of the drone strike program that we had under Obama and Trump and still have today, which eliminated due process. Basically, you could kill an American citizen without probable cause, and cover the tracks up later. But anyway, this is who he thinks we need to keep an eye on.
But it's so much more difficult today because of what we have seen, not just over the last 2 weeks, but that certainly has riveted our attention, but because of this growth in polarization in the United States and domestic violence in white supremacist groups. So I know looking forward that the members of the Biden team who have been nominated or have been appointed are now moving in laser-like fashion to try to uncover as much as they can about what looks very similar to insurgency movements that we've seen overseas, where they germinate in different parts of the country and they gain strength, and it brings together an unholy alliance frequently of religious extremists, authoritarians, fascists, bigots, racists, nativists, even libertarians. And unfortunately, I think there has been this momentum that has been generated as a result of, unfortunately, the demagogic rhetoric of people that just departed government, but also those who continue in the halls of Congress. And so I really do think that the law enforcement, Homeland Security, intelligence, and even the defense officials are doing everything possible to root out what seems to be a very, very serious and insidious threat to our democracy and our republic.
So, first of all, I want to say thank you, John Brennan, for deeming me as an enemy of yours. That's a title I will happily accept, and I will wear that badge of honor with pride. If you consider me dangerous, I appreciate that, because you are one of the last people on earth that I would ever want to associate with. What is funny, though, is he's just lumping us in with all those other groups, bigots, white supremacists, whatever. Okay, libertarians, we want to take over the world and then leave you alone. We're such a danger to society. We want to end these wars. We want to, keep the government from spying on us. Those two issues right there are why he really hates us, because we're a really big threat to him in those instances. A lot of libertarians got really angry at this, but I actually love it because it just shows that even though we're a minority movement, we do pose a threat to the establishment. You don't get any more establishment, whatever adjective you want to use, deep state or authoritarian or evil than John Brennan. Like, he is the epitome of all of those things, and he considers us a threat. So I fully endorse that move. Thank you. And here's Nick Gillespie's comments on that. He probably puts it into words better than I do.
Well, the first thing I want to say is it's always nice to be invited to a party, even when you turn out to be the piñata. So I want to say thank you to John Brennan, a recidivist liar and dissembler, a faker, a person who oversaw one of the biggest intelligence agencies in the world and was not very good at it. Thank you for thinking of libertarians and throwing that in at the end of a litany of all of the people you disagree with, who you think should be surveilled and investigated by the government. But I think, the main thing here is that Brennan is not simply speaking for himself. He's speaking for a broad swath of the political class as well as the media, who are now kind of defining anybody who disagrees with them about anything or is critical of Joe Biden as an enemy of the state. Mm-hmm. And we've heard a lot of this. You see this on Twitter, and even some Congress people and things like that talking about, we need to make lists and we need to keep track of the people who are not following our program. That is very scary stuff. In general, I think people are known both by the company they keep, who their friends are, but also who their enemies are. And I think in a lot of ways, Brennan has done a very nice job of making it clear that libertarians are not the enemy of the state. Libertarians are the ally of people who want a limited government that does a few things well and is transparent in how it operates. So thank you, John Brennan.
Thank you, John Brennan.
I find it ironic that the people who were so against Trump, because to them he resembled fascism, can be so supportive of the new administration and the media narrative that if you disagree with the state, if you disagree with the lockdowns, if you disagree with the administration, that you are a domestic enemy. That's just so funny to me. I saw a great tweet from Justin Amash. He retweeted someone who said, "It's time for this question to be front and center. Should Fox News be allowed to exist? Brain mashing as a business model shouldn't be legal." And he said, "Why not ban disagreements while you're at it? Maybe we can make thinking wrong things illegal too. We can put one guy in charge and let him decide. We can call it fascism." The last clip I'm going to play is a clip of Tulsi Gabbard, who has become even more of an ally than usual as of late. Let's hear what she has to say, and then I'll comment on that.
It's so dangerous. As you guys have been talking about, this is an issue that all Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Libertarians should be extremely concerned about, especially because we don't have to guess about where this goes or how this ends. When you have people like former CIA Director John Brennan openly talking about how he's spoken with or heard from appointees and nominees in the Biden administration who are already starting to look across our country for these types of movements similar to the insurgencies they've seen overseas, that in his words, he says, make up this unholy alliance of religious extremists, racists, bigots. He lists a few others and adds at the end, even libertarians. So when you look at their process and they start looking at, okay, what characteristics are we looking for as we're building this profile of a potential extremist? What are we talking about? A religious extremist? Are we talking about Christians, evangelical Christians? What is a religious extremist? Is it somebody who's pro-life? I mean, where do you take this? You start looking at, okay, well, obviously you have to be a white person, obviously likely male. Libertarians, well, if anybody who loves freedom, liberty, maybe has an American flag outside their house, or people who, attended a Trump rally. Once you start walking this down the path, you see where it leads to a very dangerous undermining of our civil liberties, our freedoms in our Constitution, and a targeting of almost half of the country. I read a great op-ed this morning from a former FBI agent who made a very strong case for why this new domestic terror law introduced by Adam Schiff is wrong and is directly going to undermine our constitutional rights and freedoms. This whole effort, whether you're talking about this bill or people saying that we have to deprogram these Trump cultists and people who voted for Trump because they've been radicalized, all of this just goes to further tear our country apart. And it moves towards the thing Joe Biden said in his inauguration speech that he shouldn't happen, which is a dehumanization of your opponent. And that's where his voice is so necessary right now. He is the president of this country. He delivered this speech, his voice, himself, speaking to the American people. He needs to denounce people like John Brennan and their statements, bills like the one Adam Schiff put forward, and truly speak to the American people about how we must come together around the Constitution, around our Bill of Rights, around these rights that have been endowed to us by our Creator.
So obviously everything she said there was 100% correct. And I wish we just had more libertarians who could speak with that amount of fire. So, Tulsi, this is to you. Why are you still in the Democratic Party? They hate you. They don't want anything to do with your message. We do. We agree with you on most things. It's time to leave that party and fully embrace liberty. Come be an enemy of the state with us. And I thought this was a great time to talk about gun control, because you talk about the Constitution so much and you have so much clarity on it, and you're so right about it. So just admit that trying to ban assault weapons was just a stupid position that you had to hold to make the Democrats happy. Just leave them in the dust. They don't deserve you. Give up the stupid BS issues that you had to hold high for them to accept you, because they didn't anyway. Join us in the Libertarian Party and be an enemy of the state, an enemy of John Brennan, an enemy of the military-industrial complex that you want to destroy. You belong with us, so drop the bullshit and just fully endorse liberty. And that's my message for the day.